on the specific aims page. You only have one page. And you have to make very, very difficult decisions on how you are going to use that one page. So I suggest a 3-paragraph format. The first paragraph is hitting home your significance, which they're going to see later. You kind of want to, the specific aim page is setting up the rest of your grant. You want to get that reviewer so excited about your project that they are just, they can't wait to learn more about it. And the first paragraph is this significance. Why is this area important? Your overall big picture goal. Again, you're going to hit home this throughout the rest of your grant, but that first paragraph is, remember that table I showed, like cancer, and you cite the CDC, and disease, you cite the IOM report. It's okay to have some of the same references in this first paragraph that you're going to have later. The second paragraph is stepping back and starting to tell the story about how your team has gotten on the pathway to be the team that needs to answer this question. And you can hint at your preliminary data. You're not going to get into a lot of detail here, but you have been on this pathway to carve out this very important piece of the big question that you've talked about. The big question in the first paragraph. No one R01 is going to solve everything about that big question, right? But what is the piece, the really important piece, the really important gap that your project is going to fill specifically? Here's where you'd mention specifically the study design. This is your team's path, get your team getting to it. That issue of what is the gap is very, very important. One of my pet peeves, I think I have this on the next slide, but I'll just go ahead and say it here, is when someone says, nobody has ever studied the relationship between variable A and variable B. That is not a reason to do a study. There needs to be, you need to set up for why we should care about the relationship of A and B and what is the significance of the relationship between A and B. Please don't ever just say, well, nobody's ever done this before. There's so many things that nobody's ever done before that should never be done. So why should that reviewer get really excited to spend the next 4 hours reading your grant? And then the final paragraph is where you really hit home with exactly what you're going to do. This is really hard, that whole level of how much detail do you put in, and you're going to struggle with it, and you're going to send it out to your collaborators, and you're going to have to figure out what works best with your project. On some projects, I'm able to actually put, I usually put, so to this end, our study, our multidisciplinary, I might use, what was that, tightly aligned or integrated, highly integrated, that was good, I like that. Team will set out to do this study, and we're going to address the following specific aims. And then I do a bullet or a number. So here you get a little bit of white space on this page, not a lot. And then I'm always struggling with, and this is an iterative process, how much detail? Are you going to put every single outcome that you're going to look at? Probably not. You're going to list your primary outcome. You're going to say what that measure is, put a reference. You're not going to describe the reliability and the validity of your main outcome measure. You're just going to list it with the reference, and then secondary aims, blah, 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 third aim, blah, But again, and this is a matter of style, some people actually follow each of their specific aims on this page with their hypothesis. I'm usually not able to fit the actual hypothesis on that first page. They're later in the grant. I agree with my predecessors who say we definitely need to have testable hypotheses for every one of your aims. But I just haven't been able to fit that on that one page. I'm usually saying the hypothesis maybe in the first page of my approach section. And then after I have the bullets and the numbers, at the very bottom, I link back to the significance. This study should make an important contribution to blah, 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 kind of getting them really excited to go on to the significance. Okay, I already said this, but I think it's really important. Then, now that you've done the specific aims, you're going to refer to the specific aims throughout the approach section. As you saw on Dr. Shetty's figure, first, you have to have a conceptual model in your paper if you're doing health services, clinical research, or behavioral intervention. And you write in on the, between this box and this box is how you're going to look at, that is specific aim 1, right there. And then you put specific aim 2 here. So you're linking to these specific aims throughout the entire grant. It's on the timeline. It's in the analytic plan. To address specific aim 1, we're going to do this. Throughout the whole, so it's very consistent. Consistent terminology is so important. I recently reviewed a grant where the author had had talked about social support, family support, social network, and family network interchangeably throughout the whole grant. And it was so confusing. I didn't know. I think family support was a subset of social, but I wasn't sure. It needed to be said right up front and be very, very, very consistent throughout. And again, go back to, if you change one word on the specific aims, what your specific aim is, then you have to go back and change it through the entire grant. But it's really important that you do that. Make it so easy for the reviewer. One thing I will say, some of the reviewers may not actually go back and read, even if it's an RFP or a program announcement, they may not read the whole thing. I've been on study sections where I was kind of surprised that some of the reviewers hadn't taken the time to go back and read. So remind the reviewer, say exactly, as it says on page blah, blah, blah of the program announcement, the stated aim of this program announcement is to do this, and our project addresses this specifically by A, B, and C. Then the other thing that our team does at the end, someone hinted at this earlier, but I'm going to repeat it and be really specific. You can give the reviewer text that they can lift and put in their review. Most reviewers now review by each criteria, they list strengths and weaknesses. So you can give them text that they can literally cut and paste into the strengths. Strengths of the investigative team are blah, blah, blah. Strengths of our approach are blah, blah, blah. And you can do this in a bulleted section at the end. You don't want to make it too long, but you can just make it super, super, super easy on the reviewer. Good luck. And don't hesitate to email or call if you have any questions on anything.